to our channel. My name is Retabile Zaza, and we are currently at a bookstore called Bridge Books, which most of you may know because it is a franchise here in Johannesburg, or at least this is the only place that I've seen it in. And we are here today with a guy called Thabiso. Thabiso's not told me what his surname is, so we'll give him a platform to tell you a little bit more about himself right now.
Yeah, I'm Thabiso Wagamtimkulu. I'm the store manager at Bridge Books in Johannesburg. We've been in the city for about 5 years now, specifically right here on Commissioner Street. We had 2 branches. The other branch was in Maboneng, but we closed it down, so we only have this branch, which is in the Rand Club building in Marshalltown, in the CBD.
So that's a bit about himself. I used to go to the one in Maboneng a lot, so that's where I established something called Bridge Books. They've got the most amazing range of books in Johannesburg that I've personally ever seen. Mostly I'm biased because it has a mostly Pan-African feel to it. Like most of their books are African authors or South African authors and African writers, so that's where my bias comes in, and I love this place because of that. And this particular one has a setting where people can chill and relax and have conversations and all of that, and drink your coffee sometimes. So you guys should definitely check it out. So the questions that I'm going to ask Thabiso are basically on the reading culture that he's kind of assessed while being situated here in the city of Johannesburg. So Thabiso, please tell us a little bit more about how people have received this bookstore since it has opened.
Well, people have received it very well. A lot of the people, especially around the city, were excited to see a bookstore that focuses on African and South African literature. Because when you go around the city, contrary to what we all know, the city really didn't have a lot of proper bookstores. Like some of your book retail bookstores were not in the CBD or will not set up a branch here. So what you found was a lot of book selling that is happening on the streets, where people are selling books on the streets, and a few small independent stores that are selling books. But most of what they focused on was Christianity books and self-help, popular psychology. Those books were like very, very popular. A few of them, did sell like biographies, specifically political biographies, memoirs. Then there was that whole thing that you have people who are walking the streets, but these people are consuming these other books. But if you are trying to find local books, it will be difficult for you to find them. It's specifically African fiction or local fiction, and any other non-fiction which is not necessarily self-help or religious or Christianity. So what we saw that due to that fact that there wasn't anyone providing that platform for African literature, so when we came in and we set up our first store in 5 years ago, people got excited, because they could walk into a store and just see black or African books, and see a lot of local books, from other people. Also, they didn't know other authors, like, oh, I didn't know this author, or this person is an author, know them from social media or wherever. But when they come in here, they see, oh, there's this other books, this person has books, So the excitement was very great, and huge, to an extent that, we even had people coming from the northern suburbs, people who don't normally frequent the CBD, but they will come to the CBD because they wanted to have a look at this store that actually provides a lot of local and African content.
Yeah, that's what I actually liked about it. It's that every book that I have ever thought I could see, a black writer's book, I actually found in the store. I actually found at a Bridge Books branch, so to speak. So that was very refreshing, to say the least. You know. The next question that I want to ask you is, how have the kids received it? Like the younger generation of kids, how have they received Bridge Books? And just because they walking around to school back and forth, inside, outside, you know, like literally there's a kid that just walked in right now, and she's literally just chilling and watching us, and it's such a beautiful sight. But
you find a lot of kids, you know, coming to the city. Others come due to schooling, you know, and there has been a lot of development in terms of the buildings in the CBD, which have been revamped. So you have a lot of families which have come to the CBD to, you know, to stay or reside in the buildings or the apartments. So what we have seen is that a lot of the children who now come to the city, or you know, who are studying here, they come into the shop quite often because I guess they just need a place where they can feel free, feel at home. You know, I mean, bookstores in general, it's a retail space, but bookstores are generally warm. We have a children's section which has chairs and you know, they can just be there by themselves, relax, you know, feel free, explore the books, and have no one telling them, hey, don't drop that book, don't do that. Because compared to a library, you'd probably be told, shh, keep quiet, it's a library. So this is it's a bookstore where you can come in, check out the books, feel free, you know. So most of them came in for the first time out of interest. Like, oh, this bookstore looks different from most of other bookstores that I see in the CBD. So they step in and seeing what we have, because we have a lot of African books for kids that are from African or South African authors, and you know, they come in, they have a look at that, they get excited. The following day they come in again, and they feel that it's a good, comfortable space for them, and it has become like an everyday thing, you know. As you were saying, even today with the child that have just walked in, on a daily basis, if you come to a store, especially in the afternoon, you do find a lot of kids coming in, and it's a different number of kids. You find primary level and you find high school level, like the ones you saw earlier on, whilst we were still setting up. Those are high school students, so it has become, you know, a place for them. Some of them come to chill, which is cool. I'm not complaining.
Come for the Wi-Fi.
If you're here and you're surrounded by local literature, you know, it will inspire them perhaps to read more of their of the local content, or it will inspire them, you know, to actually try to find more or understand more about African writers or African stories and African authors. So for us, it's great to see them coming in, enjoying the space, and it has helped quite a lot, especially the community, because as I was saying, you have a lot of families that have come to the city with their children, you know, to stay in the city. What we have found as well is with the programs, we used to have Saturday readings, which we still do actually. We had to stop it because of COVID, but we have started them again from scratch. You know, the response has been good. A lot of parents do pass by, because we also write it on the board and ask about it.
Do they bring their children?
Yes, they do bring their children. Like, we want our child to come on that Saturday to do a story reading. And it was the same thing that we did in Maboneng as well, because Maboneng as well had a lot of people who came into the apartments. You know, some of them are families, so they didn't have enough activities for their children. So when we did the Saturday reading for the children, they would bring their children through. even now with COVID, we stopped it, but a lot of parents who stay around the CBD did come to us and ask us, hey, what happened to your children book readings? So hence we had to bring them back in. So the space, the store being here in the city, it's very helpful for the children, the parents, the schools, because some of the kids come here and they want to do homeworks and they can easily refer to the books that we have here.
Okay.
You know, so,
Especially history, I'm assuming that would be the prominent.
Especially history.
Oh, okay. Do you think that people have the reading culture basically in South Africa has increased, regardless of the many bookstores that are being opened, the general people reading or pretending to have a reading culture around here? Do you really and genuinely believe that people instill reading as a culture within their children, and even the grown-ups? Do you think they read as a hobby or as a source of information as grown-ups?
Well, with it being a culture, it's picking up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's picking up quite significantly. Also, I think what I've picked up as well is that a lot of the parents, their children go to schools outside of the townships, and that's when most of the children get exposed to reading books or the whole literature. But at home you find that there are no books. It's not something that is very common. It's not a cultural thing to read books at home. And you find these kids then have an interest in books through the schools they go to, and then have requests. And that has created a culture where now parents have to buy books for them. It may be that the kids has an interest, or it may also that you find the school recommends that they must read some novels, some short stories or whatever. So a lot of parents then will find it necessary to come into a store like ours and be looking for books. So what I found is most parents will be like, my son, he wants this book, he said, so hey, and he likes to read, and me, I don't read, now I need to buy all these books. So meaning that in the house, the culture is changing in the house, where in a house where there wasn't any books, now there's more books coming in, and the parents are encouraging it, because even though they come in and they're not used to buying books, sometimes they look at the prices and they're like, oh, why are books so expensive? But they do buy because they understand the value and the importance of reading and the culture of reading to their children. And the future of their children, or just for the well-being, including entertainment for their children. So you find a lot of parents who do come in saying that.
So how do we bridge the gap, according to you and your knowledge? How do you think we can bridge the gap between people who don't read and people who do read, or the younger generation who's now picking up the reading habit, and the older generation who, as you say, the parents say that I don't read, but I'm willing to buy this for my kid. How do we get the parent to be like, let me just pick up this book as well and read it?
There's a number of things, but I will make an example about one of the situations that has sort of changed the way we see books and the culture of reading amongst especially African people. With the fact that you have a lot of children who are now reading and bringing that culture into the house or into the homes. Another issue that has always been, I think, from my experience being a bookseller, is that there hasn't been content that is relevant to most people. And therefore people see no relevance in reading, because it's just the literature that was out there was not speaking to them. And what you found is there was a lot of people who who are into reading or were into reading, but it will be people who are mostly predominantly in school, academia, or certain level of class in society, which also in the past, if you look at the history, it's also that issue where most of the liberation leaders as well got exposed to certain literature which enhanced their ideologies, and all of that was through missionary schools or organizations which were helping in terms of liberation and stuff like that. But it was never an everyday thing. And as much as there was a lot of authors at that time who were writing and expressing themselves, but it wasn't as big because people were not doing it, were not reading as a culture. How do we bridge that gap? As I was saying, the content is very important. I will make an example. If you look at this section here, it's the romance section. It's mostly local authors, if not all of them. You find a lot of people who walk into a bookstore and be like, I'm not used to reading, but I've read this book, a friend brought me this book, now I want to have a copy, and now I want to read more. Because you find people who get excited with the fact that they could pick up a thick book like one of these and be able to finish the whole book, whereas they've never picked up a book this thick ever before and read it out of entertainment or out of leisure. It was mostly perhaps if it has to do with school or something like that. So you find a lot of people who do that, and what has happened is then you will find a lot of people, especially if I will make reference to this genre, where you find a lot of African women walking into a bookstore asking for such books, which is, when you look at the history of book selling and literature in South Africa, you didn't have that huge number of people coming into the store asking for South African books, So it means that the culture has always been there, but it has grown now because there's content that people can relate to. So I think that's the thing, that people, in most instances, we were looking at literature and not understanding what people want or have an interest in. But people want their stories, and their stories don't have to be the best literature work. The story has to be good and an easy read, and that's what people want, and they can relate to it. So this genre blew up, and mostly it was independent authors, because even in the publishing spaces they were not given platform, because the publishing spaces had their own idea about when you write for specific groups in society, you must write in a certain way, or the book must be, and it must be literally sound. But this genre of coming from independent authors who are telling stories that people can relate to, it shows that people want the story, because a lot of other people who started buying these books, it's not people who are from literature spaces, in varsity and stuff, which, like I was saying earlier on, most of the time you find that it was those type of people who were more likely to walk into a bookstore. But now anybody walks into a bookstore because they have stories they can relate to, that they can go into a bookstore and buy.
Right.
And a lot of people, the books are expensive, but you find people budgeting and telling you, oh, can I please put up a specific amount, I'll come back again for that amount, and then I will buy the book. So the price factor as well might be the other thing that we might be discouraging people from buying or reading a lot. But definitely it has increased, the culture has grown because there's more content that people can relate to. So I think perhaps, if to answer your question fully, I would say in order for us to bridge that gap is to give platform to more local or South African authors who are telling South African stories that South Africans from all walks of life in South Africa can relate to. And then I think that's where the gap can be bridged, because you also find we give platform to a lot of independent authors as well, who bring in their books, and then you give them a platform and put them in the shops. And it's also interesting because there's a lot of them who actually submit their books.
Right.
So meaning that people are writing, and if more people are writing and spending money to publish their books independently, then it means more people are reading. So the culture, it's growing. The bridge, it's that the gap is being bridged, but it could be bridged better if we do give platform to young writers who can come with those stories that people can relate to.
Right.
So that's where we can bridge that gap. Yeah.
Why are books so expensive? That's the real question here.
Well, they're not always expensive.
Most of the ones that
They're not
people
always
want
expensive.
are expensive.
Like with us as Bridge Books, we sell new and second-hand books.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want you to walk into a store, and if you can't buy a book, depending on your pocket, there's a second-hand book that you can look at. Perhaps you might go home with that. And we have a paid forward voucher that we can even give to customers.
So it's like credit.
Yeah, it's the voucher that a person buys for someone they don't know. It's 20, 50, 100 rand, 200 rand.
Okay.
So if someone walks in and they want a book and they just short with money, I can take that paid forward voucher and
Reduce
the price, and then they can have the book. So our idea is that when you walk into the store, the price factor shouldn't be
the first thing
much
that you
of an issue. Yeah, for you, it should be about what do I need and what do I want, and then we can look at So that's why we always provide second-hand books as well, just to bring that balance. And why are books expensive? Printing costs. Yeah, there's a lot of factors, printing, the designing of the books and all of that, and that's what makes the books a bit pricey. But a lot of people have also started checking out ebooks,
Yeah.
because and as a result, ebooks at some point were much cheaper, but now the price is more or less the same with a normal book, so people still buy the physical book.
Yeah. I would also opt to buy a physical copy.
Because it's also, but it's a printing cost, and issues. That's what actually makes the prices go up. But if you're printing in bulk and printing a lot of books, you probably wouldn't charge less. Yeah, so it's more.
Let's stick with the costing of the books. So, as you mentioned, before Bridge Books, there are people who are selling books on the street. There are people who, they have these little niche places where they actually sell books. And even though it is not what I would be looking for on the street, I can get a book for 10 rand or 15 rand on the street, 20 rand. 50 rand if it's really, if it's in really good condition. And then if you had to compare that to a physical bookstore, they go up to 300, 400, 500. So do you think that there's any way that these two entities could, combine their resources and work together in terms of, selling and creating more of a culture of reading amongst the people?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier on, when you look at how we are structured, if you go downstairs to the basement, it's mostly filled with second-hand books.
Yeah.
So you do get those 20 rands, 30 rands, 50 rands, the prices vary when it comes to second-hand books. So that's why we have that and we do that, And you look at the new books. Now the new books, you get them directly from the publisher. You need to have an account with the publisher. And with the new books, you just asked me about printing and the cost, and and I said it's printing, the printing cost and stuff also play a factor. However, when you make a book, beside the printing, before the printing, there's the editing, there's the design layout, there's the cover, and everybody needs to get paid for doing that, because the cover is probably done by a graphic designer or an artist. That person is a professional, and you need to pay them, or they need to send you a code. The layout of your book, someone needs to design the layout and all of that. That person needs to get paid. The editor, to make sure that your grammar, everything is proper, so that when readers buy the book and read the book, they can read it, easily. So you need to edit your books and make sure they're proper. That person needs to get paid as well. So there's a lot of things that go into the production of a book, and then the printing costs come at the end, where you go to a printer and you print the books. From printing the books, you need to ship the books, you need to distribute the books, you need to get the books in the streets, into the stores. People also need to know about the book, so you might have to do some marketing out there. So it's things like that, where, and the author, the one who actually wrote the story, the book, needs to get paid too. So it's all of those factors. So when the prices, so that is why between a new book and a second-hand book, there is that gap, because a new book, royalties to authors, all of that needs to be covered. Needs to be covered compared to a second-hand book. A second-hand book has seen the lives, has been around for 3 years. You've borrowed it to your friend, the other friend, and then the other friend decides, I'm going to sell it to the guy who sells books in the street. And it has seen a lot, So yes, you will have to buy it at a reduced price. And at that moment, when you're buying it as a second-hand book, the author has already got his or her royalties. The designer already got their cut. You get what I mean? Like everybody who supposed to get paid or contributed in the book and supposed to get paid has already been paid, because that person who first bought the book, they bought it in a store. So now they just passed it on to a friend, and a friend passed it on to a vendor who's selling books in the street. And now you come and you want to buy that book there, then the 50 Rand will sound reasonable. But for a new book, if we say 50 Rand, no one is going to write books. And a lot of authors are not doing it for the money, because in South Africa you're not really going to be rich per se from it, even though some might have been. But if there's no monetary value, it becomes costly for no reason. So you need to cover your costs. So a lot of authors don't do it necessarily for the money, but the production of getting a book, it costs. So you need to cover those costs at least. So that is what the amount will have to go.
I just want to encourage people, especially African people, to tell more of their stories so that we can document these days that we're living in right now. So everybody, that was Thabiso. I still have forgotten his surname because he only said it once. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.